Man, we are still new to this live chat stuff. I tell you, you know we're live when that happens. Man, we
How's
are
everyone
live.
doing today?
Wow, holy cow! I tell you, I was just saying I was getting used to this live stream thing. See, that's just proof of the pudding that my microphone was even in front of me. It's okay because I want to knock it out with my hands in a couple seconds, anyhow.
Exactly.
But first and foremost, I want to thank Jen H
Gen
for
H.
the super. Let's see, do I have? Yeah, woo! Thank you so much for that. We really appreciate the
We
support,
appreciate you,
and we're
Gen
gonna
H.
and we will definitely include you in a shout out when we record. We have usually we're like a week or two ahead of time. So in other words, whatever we record this weekend will come out like 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So and just let everybody know who watches this live stream, coming out in 2 days is an episode. It's a Chris Watts episode. It's a reaction. We don't do too many reactions, but it
No.
was a good one with Dr. Oz and Nancy Grace talking about the case. You're gonna want to check that out. And we recorded that 6 weeks ago. That one just kept getting pushed off because we had so many other things coming in.
Yes.
So that one's a little bit older, but not
Still
really
hope
that
you
old.
enjoy it because
Yeah.
they still talk about things that happened 5, 6, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's not that old, but anyhow, we you have to watch next week too, because starting next, see, I get excited, Shrock. I gotta tell him all the stuff, but starting the following week, we have a little bit different, not so much a big format change, but a little bit of a format change.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be
Visually, it'll
awesome.
be more stimulating, more exciting. I think you guys will like it, so that's cool. So
Yes.
what else? What other housekeeping stuff we can get out of the way, Shrock?
Yeah, so this is for education and entertainment purposes only. Please do your
Mm-hmm.
own research and always
Absolutely.
be kind to friends, family, and enemies.
And also let you guys know that this weekend, we'll give you a hint. We are recording. It just what happens. We're Thursday is a Chris Watts case, but on this weekend, we're also going to do another recording, another episode on the Chris Watts, specifically all the interesting things that we've combed through the redacted documentation that they let out. I think it's almost 2,000 pages.
Yeah.
So some of the folks that are diehard Chris Watts fans will know most of the things, but there might be a couple things you might learn. So that's gonna be really cool, and that'll come out next week. And I'm sorry, not I say Chris Watts. Yeah, Chris Watts. That's right. I'm sorry. Next week is Morphew case, and the week after that, so 2 weeks out from now. Okay, enough of the housekeeping. Anything else I missed, Shirok? There,
No, I think you explained it
I think
all.
I got it all. Okay, let me bring this up again, just to set
Yes.
context to
So
here.
yeah, so
And let me
so the
hold on one
question today would
second.
be like, did Laci walked
All right, let me
or
see.
did
Hold
Laci
on one
walk her dog
second. There we go.
on December 24th?
There we go. And this is a little tricky. Let me see if I can. How do I do? Yeah, here we go. I click on this stuff. All right. So today we're going to talk about mostly about the Laci walking her dog. Just as a recap, because that episode just came out this past weekend, but just the Peterson case as a whole. And of course, we're in a holding pattern because we're still waiting on in May and in June. There's going to be a couple of court appointments or court dates for the DNA testing and all that to see
That would
if
be interesting.
Scott Peterson, yeah, see if they find Laci's DNA on the mattress or the hammer, and we'll dive into that a little more closely when it gets there. Uh, a lot of folks, are interested in the Watts, the Morphew, the Douglas cases. Those are more recent. The Laci and Scott Peterson case, it if that DNA comes back, I'm not saying this case is gonna. It might blow up just as big as some of these other cases, maybe more. Because way back in the day, it was huge. It was global.
It
I mean, I got
was.
people from other countries talking about this stuff. Okay, talking about this specific case.
Yes.
So if this reunites again, this case based on the DNA, that's gonna be something. So that's why we're talking about it, because there is some interesting things, and we touched upon it in our episode, Shrock, and I know you have a bunch of questions that we'll get to. But, one person says, "Oh, I saw the dog loose at 9 or, a certain time," but yet you have 5 people,
Mhm.
at least 5 people who, when I say people, because some of them were a couple, and you could see it here: Homer and Sue, Tom. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On hey, actually, let me blow it up. Let's see if I can blow it up bigger so you guys can see it. There we go. Homer and Sue, Tony, Frank and Martha, Vivian, and Jean. Now, the dates were, when you look at the court documentation, again, some of them, depending on how you read it, some are a little bit sooner or later. I know we watched Schrock, the documentary, and they were very specific, saying they were pretty confident it's between 10 a.m. and 10:30.
30, yeah.
But if indeed the dog was loose at 10:18 or 10:08 or whatever time
10:18.
frame
Yep.
it was, there could still be many scenarios that jive with this. Maybe these people are off by, and I'm gonna play what they call devil's advocate, the other side. Maybe these 5 people are off. Maybe it was between 9:30 and 10, and the dog, was loose, and Scott still had time to do what he needed to do and get out of there.
Yeah.
Which I'd find it very difficult, because now goes into part two, where if he did do something to her, and obviously he would have to, I don't know if he could get away with having a whole body in that little boat, but that's a whole other topic. We'll get into that in a second. But that could be a possibility. Maybe these people are off by half an hour, or maybe this is correct if he's innocent. Maybe these people are correct, and the dog being loose is, and I know she said, meaning the woman said, oh, she saw the dog loose. Sorry, her name slips me. Said, oh, she can verify the date because she has a receipt of when she went to go get something
Exactly.
at
And
the
that's the
store.
one for 1018. That's Cameron Service. What
Oh,
that
you're
is.
good. You're good. So you're
Yes.
keeping me honest here.
Yeah, so the reason why they actually took Karen's testimony as a legitimate witness was because she actually saw the dog. She actually took the dog and actually put the dog in the back. So she physically touched the dog. So that's why okay, she saw the dog. She didn't just see the dog, but she saw this dog loose and he had the collar on him and his leash. And she actually said, well, what is this dog doing out here? And she moved him to the back and she closed the gate so he could be in the backyard, let's just say.
Yeah.
So that was around 1018, and
Let me
that's why they
close
found
this.
evidence on that. And that's why they said, okay, between around roughly 1018.
Gotcha.
Now the others, like Tony, they didn't even talk to Tony, right? Because they was like, okay, he didn't fit the scenario. He didn't fit. So we're not going to talk to him. So that's what some people was upset about because they didn't even speak to some of the witnesses.
Well, what's interesting is we know through the documentary, which was why I mentioned it, because they talked in the documentary to the actual people, and there's a couple that said, "Oh, nobody talked to us." But then, if you go back in the court documents, at the very least, the one where they went for the appeal years later, they did at least talk to them. Now, it's not lengthy documentation
Mhm.
in the court documents; it just kind of just breezed through it. Oh, they talked to them, and so forth. Now, it's possible. Uh, oh,
Yes,
Jen,
sir.
yeah, yeah. So curious to find out the DNA results. Can't wait.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
yes.
I can't wait either. And again, we're trying to stay neutral because we want to focus on the actual facts of the case,
Mhm.
especially because if you go way back when, I mean, everybody was like, "Okay, come on now, he's down near Mexico. He changed his face. He's got ten
Well,
thousand
you
dollars."
know, I
I
can
mean,
see
everybody
that.
points to it,
I can definitely see that. You get paranoid if someone say, "Oh, Charlene, you did something," have mounting of evidence that I'm like, I know I didn't do it.
right?
So I am definitely going to try to flee. I mean, that's just a human nature thing. I Just because you run doesn't mean you're guilty. Definitely not.
Especially if they feel that they pointed you out as being,
Exactly.
it. And again, he could still be as guilty as whatever, but
Mhm.
the DNA is going to be interesting. And again, we talked about this over and over, and I apologize, but the LA, um, that nonprofit group that's taken on, for lack of a better word, they're basically a 50-50 chance.
Mhm.
If you look at the 43%, 42%, or whatever, and 15% being, not, neutral, nothing really happens. So It'd be curious to see how that comes out. The DNA is going to be huge. That's what I'm saying. If they find her DNA in any of those items, oh, forget about it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
gonna
just
kick
definitely
back
gonna
in.
blow
The
everything
the
up.
the walking the dog thing though, the reason why we focus on this, because this is so bizarre, because you have one woman who can, based on her, ticket, say, at 10:24 or wherever it was,
Hmm.
I was at the store, I have the receipt, see? So the dog, it had to be a certain amount of time. Is it possible for everything to kind of coincide? Because on one hand, you could say, well, if the dog was loose, maybe they didn't even get a chance. Maybe she never even walked her dog that morning, and Scott took care of her and loaded her up in the car, and But that gets into the second part, like I said, putting in the little boat. And Chirac mentioned. Go ahead, you talk about that boat
Oh
thing.
yeah, but I want to go back. Before
Okay,
we
let's
go
go
to the
back.
boat, let's go back to so they seen her. So one thing was another evidence was the mailman. The mailman came at 10:35 because he has to record every time he goes to someone's
Hmm.
house. So this is another evidence here. His name is Russell, like Great Grayhill. He says every time he goes to the house, the dog barks. Now the dog name is Mackenzie, by the way. Mackenzie is the dog name. He says the dog barks every time. And that's the thing. Usually, the funny thing where everybody says the mailman, the dog chases the mailman. So he always noticed that. He noticed that day, December 24th, between 10:35 and 10:45 a.m., the dog did not bark. So maybe Laci could have been walking out with the dog at that time. But he
That's
noticed
true.
the back door was open, and usually and normally the lady at 10:18, Karen said she closed the back door and she put Mackenzie in the back. But when he said he walked by, he saw the back door open. So who opened the back door?
So maybe, and again, this is assuming Scott's
Yeah,
innocent. We're just throwing now. I know we're getting into speculation, but trying to go based on the data, right?
right. And
So
those are
is
facts.
it possible that the dog got loose? She put her back, in the backyard. Then Lacey got ready, took the dog, and then did her walk, which would have matched up to
Mm-hmm.
the between 10 and
10.
10:30,
On
right?
exact time.
So that's I mean, this is where, it gets really interesting because,
It is.
yeah, I mean, but then again, you could say the dog got loose again, and I have to dig into that a little further. But that's a great observation, Shock, that that's a huge piece, the
But she
mailman and the
locked
time
she
frame.
actually clicked it and locked him in the back. Like we normally when you have a dog, you don't have it where the dog can just come out.
Right.
So she locked him in the back. Like she
But
actually put the
dogs,
latch on.
I've
Yeah, I
had
know
dogs,
sometimes
they
they
can
can get
get
loose.
out, they can
Yeah.
knock it open,
Yeah.
but still. But here's the thing, and this is why we're making a big deal about this one part of it, is that if anyone saw Lacey past 10:08 a.m., and the reason why I say 10:08 is because the officials, the officers, the investigators could triangulate where he was at the time at 10:08. They have the data, so they know he was gone by that time. So if they saw Lacey after 10:08, it pretty much points to his innocence. That's why this is like a big deal. All it
Mm-hmm.
takes is this one of those
Just one.
five individuals. And again,
That would have
there's
been
nothing
interesting if
guaranteed.
they had some type of video cameras back then. Like oh,
I
that's
know, too bad
definitely.
they didn't. But only, and a lot of them, really described it, I mean, how many people with, like, was it golden retriever, that type of dog that they
Mm-hmm.
described? How many people with that type of dog get pregnant that's in the neighborhood walking that way? And she walked that route all the time. That
Mm-hmm.
was a common route. It took about 30 to 45 minutes, I
40,
think they
yeah,
said,
40, 45 minutes. Yeah.
depending on, if sometimes you go and you turn back or you maybe do a shortcut, but based on that route. So what's really interesting is if one person gets it right, then Scott, how could Scott do it?
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the burglar that day, or they did the
Sure.
like burglar. Like
Let
she
me
was
bring up the
came back,
document.
and then she saw two guys
Oh,
across the
yeah.
street, right? And what did Jen said, starting to point.
Yeah, Jen says he stood by his innocence the whole time too. Things are starting to point to his innocence. That's 20 years of being locked up. It's
I
crazy.
know.
I know it's interesting, Jen, because the dynamic is way back when, as you remember, I mean, and I was one of them. I'm like, give me a break. You got the mistress coming out. You got him, his hair. All these things just got more. You got more and more like angry, right? Because he seems kind of cocky. And Chirac and I talked about this before. I know you've had psychology and all these other things. Not everybody reacts the same way to
Exactly.
Was or to, and his reaction could have been out of guilt of everything. Who knows? But it's interesting how I'm starting to see a lot of softness 20 years later. More people are coming out and like after seeing some of the information, like, maybe he is innocent. And again, not one way or the other, but what we find fascinating with this whole spark of interest is where was a lot of this information? I mean, it was there, but it really wasn't. It's kind of like it almost reminds me of some of these other cases where they have in their mind, the investigators, this is their guy, they got enough, they're going to go after it. How much money and time and effort do you put into it? But if
So
he is innocent, it's really, I mean, imagine 20 years. Yeah, that's a long time.
So one thing I also noticed that I picked up on is that usually when they scan this information and it's tons and tons, thousands and thousands of papers, and they scan it in. And one thing in this case, what happened is that when they scan it in, like there was two and three scanning at the same time. So there was a lot of missing data. And that's what they talked about too. So when they was
Oh,
reading over
wow.
this, they had gaps because of when you scan it in, and that's like anything, you scan it in, sometimes two papers come in at a time or three. So that actually happened in this case, which means the full story wasn't there. I mean, of course, they still gaps, but they didn't still have all the documents that they're supposed to have.
Now, you wanted to talk about exactly, and you want to talk about those burglars. Let me put this up on the screen for everybody. So, yep, these
Yes.
are the burglars here. Let me click on here so I can get
So
the other.
one witness described
There it
seeing
is.
the two men yelling at a pregnant woman who was walking her dog. The witness only received a return phone call from authorities.
And what was weird is,
And that was Diane, yeah.
yeah, and what's weird is originally, it was said that it was on another day. Now I don't know who got that messed up. I forgot if it was the authorities or it was herself, but basically it
Well,
was.
the burglars said when they actually approached the
Mhm.
burglars, like, they said, "I don't have anything to do with that pregnant woman," and the police officer said, "I'm not here for that, I'm here about the burglary." Like, that should be a
Yeah.
trigger right there,
Mhm.
but it wasn't because
There's your
he
sign.
said, "I'm not here about that. I don't know anything about that pregnant woman." And
Hmm.
he corrected him. The police officer said, "Well, I'm here about the burglary." And then they said, "Oh, the burglary happened at December 26th, 2 days after." Now, there's no way that the burglary happened December 26th because the street was flooded with news on the 26th.
Mhm.
Anchor women's, everybody, the police, they was all up and down. Who's gonna rob something? All of that traffic.
Yeah, and there was some other piece. Man, there's just so much information. It's like almost
Who's
informational.
gonna rob all
I
that
know there was
traffic?
something
So,
else I covered in one of the episodes where it also proved they couldn't be the 26th,
mhm.
and I forgot what it was. I apologize. But yeah, so
That's like a main
11:40
piece right
a.m.
there.
So again, it could line up. Okay, so if you're leaving the house, okay, so 11:35 ish, the mailman came by, saw the door open. So maybe Laci took the dog. This is just a speculation, of course. Took the dog, went for a walk. It takes 45 minutes. That would leave 11 something. I mean, it's possible. We don't know how long she took, whatever. And then, Diane, she's recollecting, but she said 11:40. And this all comes back down to the DNA. Again, sorry, I know I'm harping
Yeah.
harping on that, but it does. And so this is one huge thing. So that's one whole thing. I wish I had the video, Shrock. I should have done that. But talk about the boat, because now let's kind of move into,
Mhm.
okay, if you don't really feel one way or the other about the dog, if you're confused, is like we are, because we could see it happening in either scenario. It's just really weird that one narrative was pushed. But
Exactly.
now, let's just say, and this reminds me of the this reminds me of the Jennifer Douglas case with Fotis, because with Fotis, we ran that episode. Sorry, not to. I know we're talking about the Peterson case, but how Fotis possibly got his soon to be ex wife into this uh, SUV, and then from the SUV into the truck, and that's a whole story. But now, how did Scott? Let's say he did take Laci out of there, put it in the truck. Okay, there's plenty of room. She would have to be on the inside because it's like kind of like in the open, right? And then somehow get her into the boat. Remember, I know she doesn't weigh too much, but it's not like the
She weighed
person's.
a lot. She was pregnant. She was 8 months pregnant. That baby was another 8 to 10 pounds.
Okay,
Yeah,
so a decent amount of weight.
yeah.
I was just playing devil's advocate. Let's say, but it's not like it's very hard to move somebody who's not moving, who's passed away. It's not like they're helping you. So you got to kind of get that. Look how small that boat is.
I mean, I didn't say she weighed a lot, but she was like over 120 something pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
To be clear.
But yeah, you're right. But I mean, the thing of it is that having that weight where you have to literally, it's all you. You have to get in there, move, and then put it in the boat. And it's hard to see here. I wish I could blow it up, but you could see. Look in the front. I don't know if you guys can see my arrow. You could see where the seats are here, and then if you look towards the back where the other seats are, there's this little like divider that goes across. So, and then people say, "Oh, he chopped her up." Well, there's a whole big thing on that,
No,
because if
there
you
was
chop some up, there's
no
gonna be blood
DNA,
everywhere.
no
You gotta,
blood. They
you,
didn't find one speck of blood, not one.
yeah, and it's I'm not saying. I mean, he could have done it at the garage. I'm not. I mean, it's
No, they
possible
checked the
somewhere.
garage.
Yeah, I know.
No, but I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
I'm just saying. I'm trying to. Yeah, I'm making a. I'm making a point in this grid. You're kind of like putting the exclamation to my point, is that you got all these things, and there was weights because she was weighted down. Okay, so you figure you got to put the weights on here and somehow put
Mm,
her body in here, one form or the other. And okay, I'll just take this off for a second. But Shirak,
they did the
you gotta talk
testing.
about again that video you saw and
Yes.
explain the whole thing. 'Cause
Well,
that's
the
a good
lawyer
one.
basically did it exactly repeated what they saying that's happened. He actually got the same boat, not just the same boat, the same model of the boat, and he tried it what 3 or 4 times, and it kept tipping over. So it was basically impossible for Lacey to get in that boat, and she could have
Yeah.
been and flip over with the weights. The weights were 80 pounds a piece.
If you get a chance, Shirak, afterwards, it could be today or tomorrow, whenever, in the comments, excuse me, in the comments, if you can put in,
That link.
yeah, the link to the video, have folks watch it. It's really fascinating.
It is. I mean, he
There's
just
no,
kept flipping over.
it,
It was
it,
so
it-
funny because they flipped over, and if the boat flipped totally over, which is crazy, and he tried it again, he tried it, and
they try
someone,
it 3 times, two or three
yeah,
times, I
three
think.
times,
Yeah.
and the witness said they saw Scott Peterson and waved. Normally when you see, he
Mm-hmm.
said he didn't see
And they
any.
didn't say in the boat, and they didn't say anything in the boat. And
Mhm.
again, going and as I mentioned when I was looking, as we were looking at the boat, and I was trying to point out there. So there's like seats going across, which means it's very if you're going to lay something down, say horizontally, and I know you can kind of fold, but there's not much room to fold a body. Never mind laying it flat going across, because you can't. Like, it's not like you have depth in there where you can
Mhm.
put it underneath something. So it's
Exactly.
very hard. And then, somebody can say, well, you don't have to stand up. You could say the bottom line. And then somebody supposedly, and I know this is a little gray area, because they said they thought it looked like Scott Peterson. They almost positive they recognized him, but their angle, they could look down into the boat
Exactly.
and they didn't see anything. And there's a lot of reasons to say there's no way he could have got her in there and done that. And then I don't want to get into conspiracy theory, because you could say, well, did he go back another time? Blah, 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 blah.
I don't want to bring anything up, but this case is just, it depends where you are, right? Because I don't want to talk about the Susan Morphew
I
case.
know.
all the evidence
all
is
these,
all
yeah.
the evidence point to him, and he's scot free, right? And this,
No pun intended.
yeah. So it's just crazy
Yeah,
that it
absolutely.
was
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. So this is why, you know, it will blow my mind in a way if he is found innocent because it just goes to show you. And again, I'm not getting political because we're all independent here, but that um, how powerful the media is, and what do they call that?
The media found him
Uh,
guilty.
yeah, what do you call it? I can't even think tonight. Um, public, public not decision. I can't think of the
Right.
word.
Well, I know it's
You know what I
basically a
mean?
lot of confirmation bias it plays a role in this as well. So that's usually getting a lot of
Public opinion.
information.
Sorry, that's what I was thinking. You're guilty by public opinion.
Hmm.
Um,
And a lot of confirmation bias and public
I don't
opinion
know.
is.
It's so funny because when you watch an older documentary and you see all the pieces, it doesn't make sense. Oh yeah, he's done in Mexico 10,000 and ID. I mean, yeah, it looks bad. It's and he got an affair and this and that. And it's so funny because we talk about these other cases, but there's a lot of parallels to this stuff.
Yes,
And
it
that's
is.
why I think it's cool. I know a lot of people have passion over certain cases that we cover, but there's a lot of commonalities. So,
Yes, yes.
people who watch this, if you're watching this live or if you're watching this, afterwards, definitely check out the cases we cover because there's a lot of similarities. You'd be surprised.
Yep. And I know
And
you wanted to talk about the it's called LA Innocent Project that's
yeah,
now taking Peterson's case.
yep. So let me see if you
Let's see if
want,
we
I
could
can
find
bring up
that.
that slide
Yeah, just to,
just to kind of give
yeah,
context here.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
they are.
give me 2 seconds here, guys. Sorry, I'm like winging it as we go along, meaning I'm pulling up things. So so this L.A. Innocence Project,
Okay.
for those who didn't see the episode before, they try to exonerate wrongly convicted, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And as I mentioned, 43% of the clients were proven innocent that they took on. 42 were confirmed guilty. 15% of the cases, the evidence was inconclusive. So if you take out the 15%, you're almost at a half and half.
Mm-hmm. Which
So,
is good.
which
He
is
has to
actually
have.
pretty good. I mean, think
Yes.
of all the people who are found guilty. You're
Yes.
saying, okay, and I forgot, I thought I had a number of cases. Well, let's just make it simple. Let's say they took on 100 cases since their existence.
Mm-hmm.
That means 43 people who were guilty actually were let out, left because and of course, technology's gotten better, but it's just sad. I mean, and then people do the best they can. Obviously, our legal system isn't perfect,
Yes.
but when you take in consideration, I would think something is high profile, and I could be wrong because you could get two ways. You could it's like, oh wow, Scott Peterson, this is a wicked high profile case. Maybe we don't have enough, but hey, we should do this because we're gonna get some attention. You could get it from that lens, or you can look at it from the lens of like, okay, this is a huge, wicked popular case. We want to make sure that we have something here before we move forward, Shrock. So that's going to be the interesting part. So they must, I would assume, they feel like they have a chance with this.
Yes, they do.
So that's that.
We'll keep you updated.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see how we're doing for time here. Um, yeah, we're gonna post something. We're just talking about this today. We're mixing in a little bit of show talk and case talk here. Oh, did you hear there was an alternative juror at the end who filled in? They called her strawberry shortcake, and she determined to make sure he got a guilty sentence. Do you remember that? I remember the strawberry shortcake juror. I do. I remember
Oh,
like
wow.
vaguely. Um,
That's a good catch
yeah,
there.
that is a good one. I do remember that. I don't know the deep. Now you're gonna make that's good, Jen, because now I'm gonna dig into that a little deeper because I only know like surface level stuff about the information. I heard about that, but what would
Yeah, we
really
heard
be
about it.
interesting is because obviously all these years have passed, going back in there and because Chirac knows I like to when I can, I like to kind of deep dive, just don't get a service. So yeah, let me what I'll do is I'm gonna do a follow up and I'll add it to the comments. I'm gonna dig a little bit more. But yeah, I had heard about that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like everybody was just like, yeah, yeah, I'm so gay. Yeah, I'll tell you what I find. I'm definitely gonna do that because that has piqued my interest. I totally forgot about that too. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And like I'm not gonna be a hypocrite. I was totally for the understanding that she was gonna, you know, that Amber Fry and all that. That was enough for me.
Mhm.
you know, and it's a shame, but it's just the way it rolls. I mean, when you get your information, especially now, you get information real time. If I mean, look at some of the other cases we covered.
Yeah.
So anyhow, yeah, I'll definitely add that to that. Um, and what else was I gonna say about this case? Oh yeah, because what we're gonna try to do is we're still debating whether having a live stream every week and just rotating the cases that we're covering. Obviously, if there's something that's breaking, like just to give you guys an update. Besides this case, obviously that's coming up soon. Tomorrow, Michelle Troconis in the Jennifer Duos case is getting her sentence.
Yes.
Kent's who is the ex-lawyer Fotis in the Jennifer Duos case too. His trial is coming up, or what's going on there. So there's a lot going on in that case. We got this DNA stuff coming up, and also the Morphew case that we thought was kind of on ice for a while.
Mhm.
Well,
Yes,
that
came back
came
up.
back because the DNA, the autopsy report
Tranquilizer. Yep.
showed high volumes of tranquilizers. Actually, we did an episode this past weekend on that. So not this Thursday, but next Thursday. That's gonna be a good one. You're gonna want to check that one out. That's kind of like a
That's gonna be
little
awesome.
bit new format. We're excited about. We put some editing and stuff into that one. So we're excited and proud of that episode. That's up to Morphe stuff. We're gonna tell you all the interesting stuff. And let me tell you, Barry, it's just a matter of time. That guy's gonna be dragged back into court. I think they want to do it right, Shrock, on that one. They're gonna wait and
Yeah.
see and really make sure they got everything covered before they drag him in, but it's
Exactly.
not looking good. I don't think they ever expected to find her body, and I don't think they ever expected to, you know. And I just like this other the Laci the Peterson case here. Who knows? I bet you they never thought the DNA technology would be that. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But now that we have that, the technology, the power to go further with the DNA testing,
Mhm.
it'll be innocent. I mean, be interesting. All I can say, and then Shrock, I want you to give any final things. Good. Morphew case will be awesome. Yeah, yeah. yeah. You gotta check it out.
Yeah, Jen knows about all the
Yeah.
cases.
The Morphew case line. Now I'm gonna hook on that for just a second. I know Shrock's like, yeah, it'll go back to Peterson. But what's interesting about Morphew case, there was one episode that we did. I forgot the name of it. I think it was something. I forgot what's the name of it. I'll bring it up. But I basically proved based on the data of the cell phone data and the time he got to the house and the time he started running around, it would be literally he would have to run from his truck. He would have to have that gun he shoot the chipmunks with. He would have to have that gun like in his truck. And he would have to see the chipmunks like immediately. He would have to start running around immediately. Like in that episode, I kind of go through that. There's no way he did that. There's no way he was driving down and say, "Oh, I got chipmunks. Let me grab my gun and start running around." Because you could tell from the time his truck door opened, like that data from his vehicle to the time he would start running around, it doesn't make any sense. So I'm surprised the authorities didn't cover that. That was driving me nuts. Also, too, Shrock, you remember in that case, we saw the bike and the helmet and everybody was focusing on that Route 50, that main road where the stuff
Yeah.
was dumped. But if you look on the map, and I covered this in a separate episode, there's this thing called Route 226. It was kind of like more of a dirt road. And if you look, it's exact, those evidence were dropped right at those two spots at the very beginning of Route 226 and at the end where 50 meets. It's almost like somebody just drove down the road and just started placing evidence. It's crazy. But going back to the Peterson case, sorry, I get excited about all these
I know. I'm
cases.
like, let's talk about Peterson.
I know. We're gonna go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
there was another part of it. I just want to talk about
sure.
it briefly. I don't know if Jen knows about this part, but th- there was a lieutenant. His name is like Aponte. He monitored phone conversations and between an inmate and his brother-in-law. His brother-in-law allegedly told an inmate that Laci had like confrontation with the burglars robbing, and it was just really a brief talk. And then he's like, "Oh, don't talk about that because they didn't. They found out that all of the phone calls was being monitored." So it's just something kind of weird. I tried, I didn't get into it much, but the this lieutenant monitored, and he noticed that they was talking about Laci. These
The
were
the
the
burglars?
burglars. Yes,
Oh.
they were talking about
She knows.
Laci.
Yes, the jail conversations.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Jesse, she's so
So you
smart.
got to dive into
Yeah,
that
the
too.
jail conversations, and they mentioned that the burglars was talking about Laci, and but it was like, and then they had the recordings. But it was only like what 2 or 3 seconds, and he's like, "Oh, don't talk about that," because then they knew that they was going
There's
to be
yeah,
the conversation was recording.
Chirac and I have been, diving. We can't believe how much information is. Obviously, it's been 20 years,
So she
but
said, "I heard about that one."
in the document, yeah, the one documentary.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. You heard about that's what I'm saying. Like over the years, we're
yeah,
finding a lot of information. And we really just picked this up somewhat recently, this case, because I know we've been
yeah.
kind of hung up on the other cases, been keep us busy, like the Watts case, and there's always stuff with the Watts case going on, and even with NK and all that stuff. But this one, yeah, we realize, okay, this can pop up again, this case. Let's get refamiliarized with it. And then we're like, wow, there's a lot of document. Never mind the court documentation, but then these documentaries, and then all these. And again, Jen and others watching, it's kind of to help reduce the noise too, because what we try to do, which is can be difficult, is there's so much speculation thrown in
Yes,
there, and that's why I always go back to what's been released, even if it's redacted. The court documents or
evidence,
police documents, and that takes
forensics.
time. But I find that to be more accurate. I mean, we don't mind putting two and two together and say, well, does this make sense? Is based on logic or based on some data? But there's a lot of crazy stuff that we've seen come out too. But the documentaries have been pretty good. All right, Chirac. So that's gonna be your homework. Your homework is gonna do the deep dive into the I know you're gonna do that tomorrow too. I know you're gonna do, but deep dive into that jail conversation. See if you can dig up more, and I'm gonna dig up on the strawberry shortcake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good.
But thank you, Jen, for watching.
Yeah, and everybody else looks like we had a few more
6
people who
views.
joined, and we appreciate again. Thanks again for the super chats. Any super chats, we're gonna give shout outs to.
Yes.
And we're
Thanks
not,
again for that. We
we're
appreciate
not
it.
trying to promote the super chat. I'm just saying we appreciate everybody watching. You don't have to super chat. We just want to have the conversation. We just want people to join in on the live chats. In fact, we're
But
gonna
we
put a
appreciate the super chats as well.
yeah,
Yes.
we're gonna send out. I'm gonna put it out there today. Oh, thanks. You too. Have a great night.
Yep.
And we're going to send out a little quick questionnaire afterwards on the community to see how often we should do these live chats, because we're still new to this
Yeah,
whole
we
thing.
thinking about
We're a
doing
new
it every other
channel.
week.
We don't know if we should do it every week and rotate the cases, like do 1 week Peterson, 1 week Morphew, do Wilson Watts, or try to do it once every other week or do it once a month. Because for us, we just want more, involvement, the more people we have. Because for us, we look at our channel as not, we're kind of like the facilitators, but we're like I consider ourselves a community, all
Yes.
of us together, and we're
Yeah.
just kind of helping driving the conversation, try to figure out the stuff and stay on top of it.
But thank you guys again.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining in. I hope you catch us next time. We'll definitely give you guys a heads up when we're going to have another one.
Yep.
All right, Jen, thanks again, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.
Studio 70.